Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for your interest for this event. And especially, I'm especially glad to see here among the journalists, among the civil activists and female activists in particular, among the representatives of various paths of life, our Ukrainian female veterans. It's very significant that today is the day of the Army. On the 6th of December, you joined us on this day. And we present the results of our research on the 6th of December. Together with Anastasia Divinska, the head of UN Women, there is a joke that every 3 years, on the 6th of December, we present our research. 3 years ago, on 2015, we presented our first research about participation of our women in the Army, the Invisible Battalion. And it was the start of the global advocacy project, which you all know about now. Not only in Ukraine, but far abroad it is known. This project included legal studies, included hundreds of interviews, great advocacy campaigns, presentations in ministries, in the parliament, huge international tours and documentaries that were also awarded for being a good documentaries. The films seen in more than 50 countries of the world. So this was the start of the Invisible Battalion from the research. It was interesting for us to know what is participation of women in war, what kind of it can be, what problems do they come across, what challenges, why we hear everywhere that war is not for women, why our women, regardless of everything, they do go to war, and how do they do this. And today we present to you the second part of our research. 3 years passed and we decided to take a look what happens when our girls come back from war. Today we will be talking about Ukrainian female veterans. What problems, what challenges do they come across with? What are their achievements in this sphere? What did we manage? What did the civil society and the government manage to do? And what remains to be done? But before we get to presenting our research, I want to show you the work of PR and communication part of our team that created 2 clips congratulating our female veterans with the Day of the Army, 6th of December. And with these 2 clips, we wanted to emphasize that in reality, war is not about stereotypes, war is about personalities, individualities. And of course, the issue of gender equality, as everywhere, in war it is very important, as is everywhere. So please watch this. Yeah, the curfew is like that. The martial law is like this. So there were problems with the sound, unfortunately, here in the Ukraine forum. sorry. I think you got the main message. And clip number 2, please. So, 3 years of work and one more research that we present. I hope it will serve as an impact, like the first one, for raising the issue of women at war, which will be a start for understanding how to reintegrate our veterans to the peaceful life and what is needed for these highly motivated people to be most useful in our society. And together we will think, what can we do for this? We know very well, everyone who is present knows, that the great majority of active civil activities, unfortunately, is supported not by government but by international donors. And I want to give the floor to the person who supported the project 3 years ago, and whose will of the leader, whose leadership and whose organization was supporting us, and we still feel this sustainable support. This is Anastasia Devinska, the head of UN Women in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you, our respected female veterans and our colleagues. First, congratulations with the Day of Army. Then, congratulate you with the victory of the Invisible Battalion. As Maria said, that our cooperation, no, not really cooperation, but partnership and interaction with the Invisible Battalion started 3 years ago in December. So, as Maria said, it's our joke that every 3 years we do a presentation. So, for us, the cooperation with the Invisible Battalion was absolutely inevitable. Maria was one of the first people whom I met after I arrived to Ukraine, and I got contaminated with this idea. I just caught it like a virus. Why? Because the way they spoke about this idea, Tamara and Maria, they developed the first version of Invisible Battalion. It was real. As you know, UN Women, of course, they believe in social movements. We support social movements, and our origin was from global women's movement. So for us, it's natural to have partnership and mutual understanding. Why is it natural? Because we understand that owing to such people, such women as Maria, and many female veterans that became part of this movement, Invisible Battalion, they are the start for everything. Then they move everything, both in legislation and in politics. And owing to them, the changes can come through. And these changes are real, because they give a positive impact on the people that they are needed to. Also, I want to point out that this movement, Invisible Battalion, is unique because it was created and developed in spite of all the traditional, normal, legal, or of global women's movement. As you know, global women's movement calls itself the aging movement, and many books were written about the laws of development of this movement, but Invisible Law was outside these laws. It was not based on these rules. It was developed on its own. So this is the proof that this is a real grassroots movement. It started from the women who fought, who keep fighting, and for this reason it is so meaningful. And for this reason we support it. For us the support is not only financial support. For us the main thing is the values, the value of our partnership and our friendship. My congratulations with your success, and I am waiting for continuation of your work. Thank you very much. I will add, raising the curtain, so to say, that we are implementing in partnership with UN Women a project that will enable creation of women's veteran movement. And I think this is the force, this is the tsunami that can destroy all stereotypes that's standing on its way, all heritage, all discriminatory things, because the motivated women who went through war, they are smiling to us now. They were sitting here, they confirm it. This is what will enable literally to tear down those walls of stereotypes and to build open society. We need a society where every person can openly have open opportunities for applying themselves regardless of age, sex, color of their skin, open, democratic European society. That's what we need. So, women's veteran movement is the force. And as on the second convention of the veterans, we were talking with our colleagues, the women, the girls, that our force will turn into tsunami. So now, I gladly give the floor for presentation of to the academic coordinator of this research, Tamara Marcenyuk. She's the head of the academic team that was for a long time doing this research, bringing about the scientific approach, academic approach to this. And I give the floor, and I also add that Tamara and Anya Hretsenko and Anya Kit were also implementers and performers of the first Invisible Battalion research. They were the founders, so to say. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm very glad that there is an interest to the research, to the academic part of the research of the Invisible Battalion 2.0. We will be glad to present the results of our 5 months of our work, of our research. And first of all, I want to present the team of our sociological research. The ideologist is Maria Berlinska, also Oksana Ivantsiv from the Institute of Gender Programs. She made quite a lot for, first of all, for logistics, for coordination of this project of Invisible. Then myself, Tamar Marcenyuk, then Anna Kvit. We all were on the sociology department of Kyiv Mohyla Academy, where she now teaches gender courses, gender-related courses, and also we had a novelty compared to the previous research that lawyers joined us. This is the organization, The Legal 100. And we also are thankful to UN Women for financial and technical support of our project. In the beginning of January of 2019, probably, we will publish the text of our research, which is now being finalized. It will be quite a big volume of it. It's 130 pages or so. The text itself of the research consists of the introduction, methodological part, the first section where we studied problems of gender equality in the military, in the Ukrainian military. The second section was about social and legal protection of veterans and female veterans of ATO. And the third is the Voices of Invisible Battalion 2.0, where we interviewed the veterans, both male and female, about their status and what they need. Also, we provide certain recommendations that have a vision of changing the situation to the better. Also, we were inspired by and we were continuing our previous research, Invisible Battalion, which, as you know, had certain changes. As a result of this research, had some impact. This research enabled extension of military specialties for women. So women could now acquire so-called combat specialties. And the law was amended, the bylaw was amended, and about 400 military professions were unbanned for women. And even more attention was drawn to discrimination, gender inequality of women in general, and in the women in the military in particular. Our research had a goal of clarifying the peculiarities of the status of women who participated in ATO. Now it's Joint Forces Operation, it's called. Identifying both successes and challenges which the women face when they return to peaceful life. I must point out that the research lasted for 5 months. It started in July and ended in November of this year. It had an academic part, which was an academic review of previous research of women in the military and participation of women in the veteran. Also collection of statistical information. I must say that compared to the previous research, we had a better opportunity to better statistics. We could receive better statistics from the governmental agencies. So we have more statistics this time. And also we started the law. And the field part, so-called field part, included statistical methods for those who like statistics and for the qualitative and quantitative part. So, owing to support UN Women, we commissioned a survey of public opinion about attitude of the society to participation of women in the military and how they acquire military specialties and study in the universities for the military to become officers. So, qualitative methods included in-depth interviews with veterans of interview, but I must point out they were not representative. The goal of these interviews was not to clarify any percentage or something like that, but we wanted to understand certain phenomena, and the interviews were quite long, because we had about 30 questions in our questionnaires. Also, survey focus groups with female veterans, with 10 female veterans in each. Also, survey of journalists, officials, civil activists that are related to the military and to gender aspects. This is a traditional content analysis of mass media also. And in fact, again, using various methods is a great advantage because we could triangulate our results, which means we could compare various results with each other. Speaking about securing equality, gender equality in the military, one of successes was, in fact, in Ukraine, the development of the policy of equal rights and opportunities in the sphere of police and army is continuing. And the problem of status of women in the military attracts more attention. The interests are being lobbied on the social level, on the level of society, and the level of the government. For example, the parliamentary fraction Equal Opportunities lobbies these issues, and also more engagement of women to defense and security sector. Over 55,000 women, out of whom over 20,000 are service women, work in the military of Ukraine, which has a total number of 250,000. And in the central administration of the Ministry of Defense, almost 1/2 of officials are women. But along with these successes, we also have problems and challenges, which is typical for gender policy. Absence of political will to implement this policy that exists. Also certain gender-based stereotypes in the military, and also both vertical and horizontal segregation of the job market, of employment market, also in the military sphere. For example, there is a number of limitations for women when they want to get a military education. And speaking about certain gender stereotypes, I cannot avoid speaking about the fact that in spite of active participation of women in NATO, in fact, women continue to be perceived as a decoration of the military. They have the beauty contests in the military. We see that Petro Poroshenko this year on the 8th of March congratulated the military with words, "Beauty will save the world." Also, there are such expressions in the mass media like the students of the certain institutes decorated the celebration. Their battalion was the most beautiful. That is, mass media emphasized not the professionalism of women, but their beauty or something like that. So this problem was registered before, and it is still very much valid. About legal defense, legal protection of veterans, female veterans, the representative of the Legal 100 will speak about it. In general, among the successes, we discovered this. Since the start of the independence of Ukraine, the attention of society was drawn to problems of veterans, and at that time it was veterans of Afghanistan, but the topic was raised then. Also, a couple of researches were done. For example, in 2012 there was a research, so the veterans generally know about the benefits that they enjoy from the government. I also want to emphasize that the data shows that if men serve with women, they evaluate women more highly if they served with them. And of course, female veterans themselves point out that some time is needed for male colleague to accept them on equal grounds. Also, there is a women's part of veteran movement in Ukraine. There are also problematic
нейтральні програми соціального захисту для ветеранів АТО, тобто ігнорування гендерного чинника. це брак державної підтримки для місцевих органів державної влади, всеукраїнських і місцевих громадських організацій, які розробляють і впроваджують додаткові соціальні гарантії, програми розвитку, адаптації, реадаптації ветеранок та членів їхніх родин. І це загалом недостатній рівень інформування ветеранок про гарантії соціального захисту та можливості їх успішного впровадження прав та інтересів. Надам теж певну статистичну інформацію. Зокрема, як я вже зазначала, що цього року ми мали можливість.
I pointed out that we were able to receive more statistics than three years ago. And of course it's a great advantage for me as a researcher, openness of the governmental agencies to the situation. In particular, based on the State Service of Ukraine data, State Service of Ukraine for the issues of participants and veterans of ATO, we have now about 350,000 veterans and 3.5% of participants who participated in combat. The percentage of those who were disabled in combat is 3,400 in general, and 33 of them are women, which is 1%. In the National Police, in the Security Service of Ukraine, and in the Intelligence Department, the most participants of combat is in the Ministry of Ukraine. It's actually 3.5%. Taking a look at by regions, as expected, most female participants of combat are from the east of Ukraine, from Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Luhansk, Donetsk, also from Zhytomyr, Lvivska Oblast, from Kiev and Kievska Oblast. Most women who were disabled in war from my Volhynian Oblast and from Dnipropetrovsk, Zhytomyrska Oblast, and etc. Speaking about the status and evaluation of needs of ATO veterans, female veterans in Ukraine, among successes I must point out that there is a system of reintegration of veterans into civilian life, which includes a lot of benefits and services. The survey of public opinion shows that Ukrainian society in general supports the idea of engaging women to the military on equal grounds with men, and also giving them opportunity to receive military education and to become officers. Among women who participated in combat, they are active and they want to participate in the veterans movement. Among challenges and problems, we discovered that the services for integration of veterans are inaccessible, or there is a great red taping, lack of coordination between various governmental agencies, etc. So it's hard to get them. Also, it's hard. There is no evaluation of efficiency of services provided, so there is no feedback. So, and also the services are rather gender neutral, not gender sensitive. Also, one more challenge is that female veterans have big trouble speaking to civilians. And there is certain stigmatizations of both male and female veterans, in particular in mass media. And finally, I will show the answers to one of the questions to the Society of Ukraine. In this survey, a representative for the population of Ukraine, survey of public opinion performed by the Institute of Sociology of Ukraine, Over 2,000 respondents answered this survey in September of 2018. The question was, to your opinion, which variant of army Ukraine needs? And the most popular answer is professional army, contract-based army, which accepts both men and women on volunteer basis. 62% of people supported this idea. And this is the variant lobbied by Maria Berlinska and by the project Invisible Battalion in general. Another answer, less popular, is the situation that we have now in Ukraine. Based on the law of Ukraine on securing equal opportunities for men and women as of 2005, the conscription for men is not discrimination by sex, and this idea is supported by 17%, the conscription for men. About 11% supports conscription of, and less than 2% support conscription of both men and women. So also less than 10% of respondents refused to answer or said it's hard to answer, which is typical for such sociological studies. Also, there are other results of research. They show that in general the society is ready to see women as equal to men, as those who study to be officers and those who have an opportunity to work in the military sphere and to implement their employment potential in this sphere. Now I want to give the floor to my colleague, Anna Kvit, who will tell you about the results of the in-depth interviews, qualitative research, the voices of female veterans. That's a metaphorical name we had in the previous research too. So please. Hello everyone. I will present the results of our qualitative research of male and female veterans. A bit about veterans. We conducted in-depth interview of 14 male veterans and 8 female veterans. Asked them how they returned to peaceful life. We conducted semi-structured in-depth interviews, and the goal was not to discover the numbers or statistics, but to hear about the experiences. We studied how do they return and reintegrate to peaceful life, what problems and challenges they face, and they shared their stories with us. In short, I will try to retell you what we learned, focusing on the aspects that were interesting for our research, first of all. So the first is communication and attitude to veterans, both male and female, in the society. So at once we have to say that the process of communication with civilian population is hard for them. Of all our respondents, we saw that the circle of communication changes, it narrows considerably. Veterans continue to communicate with those men and women who they fought with, and with a very narrow circle of civilian population with whom they are either comfortable to communicate with or they have to. The isolation is not only social but also sometimes physical, because some of our respondents had hard time getting to public places, even buying goods in a store. We had a case where our female veteran said that my daughter was taking me out to a store so that I could see people and communicate with them a bit. Also changes in the circle of communication. We see biases. Many respondents both male and female, pointed out. The first thing they tell us, a lack of respect to their contribution to peacekeeping and peace building in Ukraine. Quite biased attitude to them. Also, civilian population in general is biased, and also officials of employment of offices, and also psychologists or in public transport. Public transport is a very painful thing. Many veterans said they avoid traveling in public transport, especially they avoid showing the ID of a veteran, because it's a potentially conflict situation. Someone will question their participation in NATO, someone will raise this issue, someone will discuss, and nothing good generally comes out of this discussion in public transport. Many of our respondents said that for this reason they avoid public places, because they are potentially conflict rich, and they cannot project their response. They cannot guarantee that they will respond adequately, so they're afraid of this. Returning to peaceful life means also getting employed. There are two problematic aspects. First, structural problems, and the second one is, as we call it, existential problems. The structural problems are, first of all, lack of employment, especially in Ukraine, especially in small cities, small towns, in villages, and also biases of employment agencies to veterans. There were 4 respondents who officially addressed to the employment office to find employment, and they were not able to do that via the official employment office. Also, they pointed out that they experience biases from the officials on the employment offices. First of all, these are comments or questions related to their participation in NATO. The questions about why did you go there, what were you doing, it's quite rude, but unfortunately they heard comments like this. About existential issues, returning to peaceful life quite often changes people. People change, their values change, their interests change. Many of our respondents say they want to find employment where they are useful, where they do something useful for themselves and for the society in general. It's hard to find such employment. They need time to understand what could this be. Also, they try to learn what aspects are favorable for them to find employment faster and easier. Surprisingly, one of the aspects, do not start searching for employment at once. Give it some time to rest. So if a woman had some financial resources or other resources that could allow her to stay without employment for a while, it was helpful. Also, relatives and friends who could support them financially and give them a moral support to provide them a calm atmosphere for stopping and thinking what they want to do with their life in future. It was a favorable factor. Also, a favorable factor is that in Ukraine, based on the Ukrainian legislation, men and women who are either mobilized or sign a contract to the military, the employment place needs to be retained. Mainly the employers who retain them are governmental agencies. So the person could come back to this employment without starting to search for a new workplace. Unfortunately, even if the workplace is retained, our female veterans reported that it's really hard for them to return to their old jobs. Even if they technically work there, it's hard for them to to be as they were before. Only one respondent said during war she was interested in journalism, and when she returned she knew where to find employment and which employment she wanted to find. So it was journalism, and she thinks she was successful in reintegration and finding new employment. So what are the needs based on our research? What are the needs of the female veterans related to employment? First of all, training, retraining, acquiring new skills, new goals, a big demand for new business, for loans for new business, for training for new business of how to administrate their own business. Many people reported they want to learn English and they want to learn more legislation of Ukraine, the law. But the programs of retraining require additional resources. There are programs like that, but mainly those that are good quality or interesting are in big cities, in Kiev or other big cities. And to stay in a big city, you need resources if you don't live there. So lack of resources to come and live in Kiev, even if the retraining programs are free, is the reason why they do not participate in such courses, retraining courses. One more point is opportunity to work with something related to the military. The female respondents usually said that they need something like something of a transitional period, where they could transition from their military experience and acquiring new experience of adaptation into civilian life. Many of our respondents were either finding opportunities to study tactical medicine, tactical medical care, military medical care, and in reality they said it was their way of to stay with the war while trying to get back to the peaceful life at the same time. Another aspect is social protection in Ukraine. Based on the Ukrainian legislation, we have many services available for veterans. Social protection, benefits, etc. What are the complications with this? First, women have harder time than men to get access to social protection services and benefits, especially for women who fought in the volunteer battalions, not in the army, because it's hard for them to get ID of combat participant. Many veterans actually abandoned the idea of getting the official ID. One of them reported that her documents were not even reviewed, and without a status, official status of combat participant, they do not have access to many to social protection services. Also, we discovered that female veterans are not very knowledgeable about what services they want to receive, especially where specifically they can get those benefits. They said that official documentation involves a lot of red taping. Sometimes they just give up and do not finalize this process, because it's very hard for them. Also, in the interview, we pointed out that the quality of providing services, medical services and services of medical rehabilitation, is not sufficiently high. There were especially many negative responses about governmental psychological services. It boils down to the fact that the staff, the personnel who is supposed to do this psychological support, does not have enough training nor experience. Not always the services is what they need. There was much criticism to about rehabilitation in sanatoriums. Very negative feedback about state sanatoriums. Corruption and low quality of services is a general complaint with this institution, recreational institutions and treatment institutions. So what are the needs that we pointed out after these interviews? First, better quality and accessibility of services for veterans. We need to better inform veterans and their family members about the benefits and services they can receive. But also, we need to better inform service providers about the benefits that the veterans are entitled to, because sometimes providers are not aware that they have to provide certain services. We need to fight also with corruption in medical institutions, especially. We need to conduct the gender evaluation for veterans in the social protection and their needs, and improve qualification of public servants who work with veterans, both specialized and their general communication skills when they speak with veterans. The next question that we researched was participation of women in the veteran movement. And we know that the female veteran movement, women's veteran movement is now being formed. Women who participated in NATO are very active women who have very defined civil position, public standing. They have desire to do something. Many of our respondents already do some civil activism, but the majority of them works with other categories of population, not with female veterans, but with other soldiers or with children. Also, the movement is developing that focuses on leisure for veterans. For example, there is a project, Traveling of Veterans. You might have heard about it. Project for veterans to travel to other countries. And our respondents participated there. They are full of enthusiasm about perspectives of continuing these activities. Now, women's veteran movement has been formed, as in the previous slides. You could see that we have motivation, we have energy, and I hope it will continue to work out later. And finally, we conducted expert questioning. We conducted a survey of 21 experts, including public officials, NGO activists. We asked them what to improve, how their comments. Their comments were often the same as the veterans' comments. About the positive issues, almost everyone was mentioning that we already have the system of reintegration of veterans in Ukraine. It includes many benefits. It gets better with every year. But the main negative aspect is that the governmental system for reintegration of veterans is quite detached from the end user, from the person who actually receives this service, because the need evaluation is not conducted in the services for veterans, and also there is a lack of efficiency control for services provided. So there are things to improve in this system. Also, experts were mentioning that the quality of governmental services provided to the veterans is lacking and needs improvement. Often we hear that the services provided by the NGOs are of much higher quality, but the problem is that their work is not sustainable. They depend on external financing from international organizations, from foreign organizations. So if they don't have financing, no work. Also, best programs are in the centers, in big cities, in Kiev, in the capital, so not all veterans are able to come to Kiev to participate in them. Especially they cannot come here during the working days. All experts mentioned lack of interdepartmental coordination, about the necessity to create the Ministry of Veterans, And we know it will be created, and we hope that the coordination of the issues of veterans will be improved with creation of this ministry. Thank you. Someone mentioned that we need a coffee break right now. I ended my 57th page of my speech now for the next hour. Okay, friends. In reality, before coffee break, I want to, and before returning to listening to our Legal 100 organization about the legal part of our research, which we conducted together in the project, together with Jana. And before transiting to practical cases, we will tell you what are the projects, how can we join them, what does it mean to, what is the travel for veterans, what is the project ambassador, how do they practice Krav Maga, practice English, how they get trained to control drones. We'll tell you after the break. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank my team. It's an honor to work with you. Thank you everyone who is present here from my team. And some of them are chairing, right? Some of them are in the panel. Also, thank you our partners, UN Women, and thank you Anastasia Devinska for systematic support, because one-time support is not the same as 3 years of cooperation, which means that UN Women has a stable interest to Ukraine's sector of defense and security. Also, thank you to our project coordinator, Svetlana Zakranitska, for her professional and friendly approach. I worked for a long time in this sphere, but she's an exceptional alloy of friendliness and professionalism. We will come back here in 10 or 15 minutes here to listen to practical cases. Thank you.
У нас, до речі, одна, з ветеранок, одна жінка ходить, вона мама, вона теж їздить зі Святошина, довго їздить.
Я знаю, звісно, просто це було ще за 30.
Видно, їй треба, коли був краш-тест, так подобасила інструктора, що так.
Я дуже хочу, у мене ротація погано працює, думаю, може якось чуть-чуть.
Ну, може, з Нового року там щось і зміниться, якби нас ходило більше, то, може, би ми могли якийсь індивідуальний графік, треба просто хоч раз десь. Ну, ми будемо вам повідомляти, бо там періодично якісь семінари, і от в мене, чесно, я ж то не була там, де ви, але в мене, я коли почала ходити, в мене така якась, я вибила всю якусь злость, серйозно. Ну, я в громадській роботі давно, я Машу знаю купу років, і ми, там, із Майдану, купу всього, і це вже нема, треба втекти взагалі. І там ми вже дійсно так. І, коротше, знаєте, коли у нас жінок, вона все туди, і я там, інструктор каже, каже, слабше дієш, все вже вибила.
Тому що в нас
дуже сильно треба. Йдемо десь на каву.
якщо так розглядати ці повернення, я 5 днів дивилася криваві серіали «Гра престолів», не виходила з дому, не мила голову. що може. Так, я Катерина. 3 роки пропрацювала на телебаченні, зараз цього каналу і доєдналися до часу. Про повернення, ще повертаюся до повернення, це були ці 3 роки, я або не дуже такий міцний бар'єр поставила між собою, і що про Україну, я показую життя, і ніби цього не знаю, правильно, я вдарилася в роботу, почала тренувати свої навички і повністю себе відгородила, майже не спілкувалася, лише з близьким колом ветеранів. Також займалися цією роботою, плюс-мінус, там, кіно, журналістом, телебаченням, як і я, наш спільний інтерес. І тільки коли в мене взагалі мій досвід перебування в Україні, я його переробила, якимись саморефлексіями, якимись такими практиками, можливо, медитації, але вдалося цей досвід знову якось пережити, і тільки після цього мене я знову в строю, але не дуже повертатися, можливо, саме до військових роботи. Я не бачу сил, як мені здається, що це життя. Коли, наприклад, воєнний стан ввели, це мене трошки на такі роздуми повело, що я дійсно я буду робити тут все можливе, так, щоб у нас було квітуче і щасливе суспільство. Це теж робота, але я дуже віддаю шану дівчатам, продовжую бути там, вітаю Збройних Сил. Це велика мужність, багато продовжувати складну роботу, бо до комфорту в мене зараз ставлення трошки інше. Раніше я могла багато підвали, бруд, а зараз в мене вже я включаю можливості, якщо люди роблять. Цей період, коли пам'ятаєте, можливо, громадські культури, найближчим друзям, які тебе розуміють. В мене хлопець взагалі разом зі мною повернувся до щасливця, трошки раніше, ми разом якось цей, тобто всередині нашого суспільства ці розмови були, тобто, якщо від інших людей, мені дійсно було там неприємно цієї теми стосуватися, якось торкатися, з ним якось було це легше, бо це один з методів вже досить повернення, реабілітації. А взагалі, чи виникали у вас проблеми, чи певні виглядають? В мене немає ОВД. Так як я була в добровольчому формуванні, наскільки я знаю, комісії Київської області вона виникла, сформувалася лише нещодавно. Тобто там були проблеми такого плану, що спочатку комісію, членів комісії збирали, потім вони не могли зібратися, щоб на зібрання обрати голову, а аргументом було, що нема голови. Тобто, я не зовсім розумію, не зовсім в цю сферу хочу занурюватися і щось розуміти. Тобто, дякуючи небайдужим моїм друзям, так, вони більше хочуть, щоб я отримала ГУБД, ніж я. Мені не хочеться.
Добре.
Okay, if everyone gathered back up, let's continue. I want to gladly introduce you Maria Zvagintseva, who represents Legal 100, the organization we all know. The legislative aspects of rehabilitation and reintegration of female veterans, a huge piece of work that they've done, will be presented by Maria now. Thank you, Maria, for an opportunity to join such an interesting research. I join everyone's congratulations with the professional military holiday today for Ukrainian military. As you pointed out, today in Ukraine, 56,000, even more, military service women. Over 12,000 already have status of combat participants, and of course this number is increasing as we speak. The main law that regulates is the law on the status of veterans of war that provides for a set of 21 benefits for participants of war. The main is the right for free passage in city transport and intercity transport. In many cities this benefit is monetized. It's land allocation for various purposes for our participants, discounts for payment of utilities, and compensation for medications for certain diseases. But all these benefits are provided based on the status of combat participants, regardless of sex, men, women, so it's all compliant to the international law.
Закріплений принцип
In the law about the status of veterans of war, the principle of supremacy of international law is observed, which means that international law takes precedence, but international law does not provide any additional benefits of those laws, of those treaties that are adopted by Ukrainian Parliament, ratified by Ukrainian Parliament. So free dentistry services, sanatorium, recreational services, monthly medical care, examination, doctor's examination, priority in employment when layoffs are performed. The veterans have a priority right to be retained. Because both in Constitution and in the law gender equality is specified, there are no special provisions about no additional social protection for women, and this generally complies with the international law that Ukraine agreed to and to Ukrainian Constitution. But even though we say that in the laws it's okay, the law is fine, it doesn't mean it's without problem, because there are problems related specifically to female veterans, of course, because the status provides additional benefits regardless of specific needs of that veteran, and this is a problem for them, because a person cannot choose. Perhaps they want to take something else instead of something they are not using, some benefit they are not using. So it's impossible to choose something that's specifically needed to improve the conditions of life of the veteran. As Anna pointed out, insufficient awareness of female veterans about the benefits, about social protection available, and how to apply for them. The Legal 100 developed a memo for participants of Ukrainian-Russian war. It specifies how to act to receive certain benefits. But of course the level of awareness, especially in some remote rural areas, is insufficient still. One more problem is absence of individual approaches to measures of psychological support and rehabilitation. And here the approach of gender equality needs to be substituted for gender sensitivity approach, because based on the provision of the Cabinet of Ministers on approval of the procedure for adaptation of veterans and those who suffered in the Revolution of Dignity, it does not specify any specific gender-specific things. But maybe this research will enable them to point out some specific issues that the society and veterans themselves want to see. Also, lack of consideration of gender factor is negative, as we think, when they develop programs for psychological rehabilitation. For example, current decree of the Ministry of the Healthcare as of 1st of June 2012 about psychological rehabilitation of participants of ATO and those who suffered in the Revolution of Dignity. Also, this decree does not consider any specific psychological readaptation for female participants of combat. For example, those who suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, etc. So, there is a program for transition from military to civilian life for both men and women veterans. There are no programs in Ukraine like they have in Canada or in US. There are programs in Canada, for example, where during the military service, the servicemen, servicewomen can study something, to get trained, to get better, to adapt better to civilian life. There is also a law about further employment of veterans in the US. There is an opportunity of receiving unemployment benefits not through unemployment office as we do, but there the veterans, the former employer, meaning the military structures are responsible for the veterans, which means they undertake moral and social responsibility and they protect veterans better. There are courses of financial literacy, and these courses are provided not regardless of the reason that the person was dismissed. For example, if they are dismissed for some offense or something negative they do, they still receive the benefit of this training. Meaning, taking into account some real needs of veterans is a problem. And securing sufficient social guarantees needs to take into account individual needs of veterans, meaning that both economic and social reality calls for additional provisions and bylaws and laws and policies. But not only on the legislative level, we can change guarantees not only on legislative level. There are so-called local guarantees. When we prepared the report, we clarified that in 2 cities there are acting programs that are financed in city of Kropivnitsky. Obstetrician and gynecologist support for female veterans is provided. And in another city there is a business training for female veterans. This program can be used not only by veterans, but this program is generally for Lviv city residents, for those who are registered in Lviv and Lviv Oblast, but veterans also can use and do use this program for reintegration to society and reintegration to peaceful life. As to recommendations, after conducting the analysis of the legislation, laws and bylaws, we can say that further survey of identifying needs of veterans are needed to make specific changes to laws and bylaws. Awareness raising is also a priority task, not only for the government, but also for local NGOs. There are many associations of veterans now, participants of ATO, participants of Operation of Joint Forces, it's called now, who do awareness raising work, who tell about their benefits to veterans regardless of their gender, their sex. Even though women's veteran movements gain grounds now. As to social professional adaptation, it requires amendment of bylaws that I mentioned, decree of the Ministry of Healthcare and bylaw decree of the Cabinet of Ministers about adaptation of participants of ATO and participants of Revolution of Dignity who got injured. So the newly created Ministry of Veterans needs to have either department or at least specialist who could consider gender issues of the problem of veterans, and the government could provide support to local initiatives, to local NGOs that are being provided now by NGOs for further social and legal protection of veterans. And a separate problem I want to point out about sanatorium and recreation treatment. It was already mentioned that these services of low quality and inefficient, right? But today, providing tickets for resorts are conducted by various structures. Social protection by the military. There are separate ministries and agencies can provide them. So people get lost. Who is responsible for what? So access to all benefits that is provided for by the law about veterans need to be simplified. Regardless of gender factor, it can be effective. If we simplify it, everyone will benefit, including women who defended their homeland. Currently, that's it. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer. Thank you very much. I want to tell you something important. And after that, we will be transiting to... If you have several questions, we can answer them. The important thing I want to say is, first, it's important to understand it's a preliminary representation of the results of the research. In fact, you can count on seeing the text in English and in Ukrainian and English, in this winter, in 2019. It might be in January, in the beginning of February maybe. We do everything now to do it faster. You will be able to read it. And when we present the presentation proper, the research proper, the new film, No Obvious Science, the documentary will be shown, will be demonstrated. It's a documentary about a woman who comes back from war. The topic of PTSD and reintegration raised there, and how the governmental machine is lacking in the task to help of supporting the veteran in returning to peaceful life. The post-production of this film was supported also by UN Women in Ukraine, by the way. Also, it's important to understand that today, what do we plan to base on in the governmental structures? Ukrainians traditionally do not count on the government, you know. They count on themselves, but we do understand that grassroots is very good, civil society, growing, potential female leaders is very good. But without interaction with the governmental system, it's impossible to make any system-changing efforts are not really feasible. So, together with interfractional association of members of parliaments, equal opportunities, female parliamentaries who do understand what discrimination is, who experience that, who do understand all the obstacles on this way, we work with them. So, for example, on the second association of Convention of Veterans, there was Oksana Sosi and Marina Ionova was planned too, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. Also, now acting Minister of Minister of Veterans, Irina Khvis, was coming to communicate with veterans. So the Society of Horse has great hopes for this ministry. They hope that this ministry will resolve many problems that accumulated in these 5 years related to veterans. And we count on cooperation. And by the way, the first positive experience of cooperation with the Ministry of Veterans, we have already two clips that I demonstrated. The Ministry of Veterans helped with informational support of these clips to make them visible, to make people aware of them. In the nearest days, you will see them broadcasted on Ukrainian channels. As we separately thank them for this work that they conducted. Also, I want to point out this. There are many various opportunities, even now. I call to all female veterans in Ukraine to join us, to join these opportunities, to use these opportunities. The researchers said one of the problems is all the best things are in Kiev. And people in rural areas, in the regions, we see that no one really cares about those people. So one of the goals of this veteran movement, female veteran movements, to make it national-wide, so that we have centers in all towns and cities all around Ukraine. So this mutual support and solidarity could enable people to return and to fairly show themselves in civilian life. So in this out of this project, Invisible Battalion, several smaller projects sprouted. For example, in cooperation with USA, Kiev Mohila stipends, and we have 4 students getting their master's degrees in the Kiev Mohila Academy. So it's endowment for better education. I think everyone present here will agree that education is the key to returning to further integration of the society, into society. Also, there is a project of travels of veterans. It's a volunteer project. It's a project where veterans, often just from the trenches, get to travel in Europe or somewhere else to get some rest, to get reloaded, so to say. So everyone who sees us online, to watch our webpage of the Invisible Battalion and the page of UN Women in Ukraine, we will be, please check these web pages. We will be publishing next stages on these web pages. Also, there are smaller but not less systematic things. An opportunity to study English for free every week. We gather in the Ministry of in the building of offices. We train to control drones. It's useful in civilian life too. We also developed a course for legal consultations and legal support. And we also launch a volunteer project, Ambassador, opportunity of veteran diplomacy. What does it mean? When we, veterans from New York to Toronto to Shanghai, we had a grand tour in Britain, in British Parliament, in Parliament of Wales. We saw how lords, members of parliament, opinion makers, journalists in Washington and Congress, in Chatham House, in Frontline Club in London, how attentively the people who are key decision makers, how attentively they listen to Ukrainian veterans, how they are interested. And what different kind of diplomacy is it? So-called people's diplomacy. We saw it is effective. And we decided that veterans who have certain level of English and who are ready to be ambassadors, we will send them to international events related to Ukraine, Ukrainian events, Ukraine-Russian war, and explain what is happening. Often it is more effective than the classical diplomacy. These are the things we are proposing. Please tell this information to those who might be interested. And I propose to improve our civil society and the level of a civil society. This is what helps us to hold off for these 5 years, to hold together these 5 years. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your preliminary results of this very much needed research for all types of activities, for strategic level and for the level of providing help specifically to veterans and specifically to female veterans. My name is Lyudmila Kovalchuk. I'm national consultant in the Office of Vice Prime Minister of UN Women, and the events that we conduct in the region are focused on localizing national policies of improvement of gender equality under Women Peace Equality program. We made requests to oblast administrations, and one of the questions in this request was how many veterans and female veterans you have, male and female veterans, and how many of them went through rehabilitation and reintegration programs. So the percentage is very low based on what they replied. If not in the numbers, it's low. In the tendency is definitely quite unfavorable, and the percentage of veterans, it's low. In some oblasts, it's as low as 0. So 0 women or men were reintegrated in this oblast, in the programs of reintegration. So. Did you as experts, could you tell us why women do not go through these programs? Why do not they apply? Are they not aware about this? Do they not trust? Do they like specialists or everything taken together? What is the main factor? That's what my question is. Thank you. I think the answer is everything taken together. First, female veterans are less numerous than men. Second, not all of them have opportunity to go through these programs. So if they do not have official combat participant status, they cannot participate, right? But also I think it is due, because from what I can say from our interviews, one of the reasons can be lack of awareness of these programs. One other possible reason is lack of trust that this program will actually help, because female veterans that we interviewed, many of them are very skeptical about the services of the government, especially related to psychological rehabilitation. Only if it's very much needed. While it's not really needed, they just do not go there. There are many reasons why, but I think we have veterans here. Maybe they might add something that I don't know. You know, I hear this. Anya, please introduce yourself. I'm veteran, volunteer. I've heard now about this program for the first time. I have the certificate of participant of anti-terrorist operation. It's different than combat participant. So there are some benefits on the territory of Ivano-Frankivsk Oblast where I live, and I cannot get free passage to Kiev with my paper, with my certificate. I do not know about this program, so if you tell me, I will tell my friends and colleagues that such programs exist. So, hello, Radio Liberty. Tell me, Ludmila, did you come specifically for this meeting? No, I reside in Kiev for 3 years already. And you still cannot use your certificate in Kiev? No, because the city council does not adopt the bylaw to give benefits to those veterans. So, other than, in general, what attitude have you seen from officials and from the society as a participant of combat? The attitudes are different by territory. In my oblast, the attitude is very good. In medical institutions, I was in the hospital recently for free. The treatment was free. Doctors and nurses were very friendly. They advised me very much where to go, etc. And I'm one of the first girls who went to the East, so they know me. But I personally did not come across any red taping where I live in Ivano-Frankivsk, but I did come across red taping in Kiev. Medical services are provided just like to any other citizen, meaning I don't have any benefits. So they do not provide actually medical services to me because I do not have Kiev registration. I had to wait in the line on the day, and I couldn't even get to the doctor. And the second day the same. So the third time I just skipped. So I couldn't get the medical services here at all. Any other questions, please? Hello, Anna Dovopol. A lot was said about questions related to and problems related to veterans, female and male veterans. Problems related to both genders. So what are the specificity of female veterans experience? What are their challenges as women to the problems related to men as well, because of course many issues are common for men and women, but what are the specific problems for women? Just a couple of outlines, not as a specialist, but just as a woman who learns this for a long time. For example, children. At our convention, there was our battle sister with 2 children. We hired a nurse so she could participate, and we of course helped her with children because her husband is a serviceman. They are young children, so to receive any benefit, any help, she's stuck. She's stuck to children very much. It's not the problem usually with men. Usually, traditionally, women here care about children, but if a woman is traumatized or injured, they still have to care about children. There are many battle sisters I know who switched to children, but no one did care about the specific condition. No psychologist, no any specific help, etc. One more thing about the girls who serve now. There is no gynecological examination in the military. When they come back, of course, they can have a lot of problems suppressed in service. We do know that there are no toilets, no special toilets, no special showers. There is nothing like that, regardless of what our officials say, nothing special. There is freezing cold, which can affect their gynecological health. So this is the problem. Also, my experience is that often men can afford a period cut out of their time to relax, to drink cognac, etc. The girls cannot afford that because they have family, work, a necessity to just do it. And in addition, they have some NGO-related, activism-related things they do. So boys after the war are free, but girls just keep on going. They have much heavier load in general. So a girl needs to be twice as good to be accepted as equal. And the load, of course, we do understand that extra load does affect quality of life, longevity of life, life expectancy, health, all these things. I want to add to this question, and I think the answer will be related to the previous one, is stigma and stereotypes that women who have war experience show. I think Svetlana Alexievich, who in her book The Woman Has Not a Woman's Face, when I learned in Volyn Oblast, there is a number of programs that is conducted by NGOs and government, local self-government in cooperation. So the participants didn't have any women, and when I asked NGO leaders, she said that it's hard to get women to get public about these programs because there is a stigma of women who have experience of war. So not everyone is ready to speak openly about this problem. So this stereotypical attitude where really women need to add much more efforts to show they are worthy of this work, of this sphere. Again, that they are professionals. I must remind you that we don't have much time remaining. Larissa Kobylarska, I have two questions. Tamara started speaking about this stigmatization. The question of stigma during the service is one thing, and the second one after the return into the civilian life. Did you study any of it? Do you have any results related to it in your research? Because everyone can guess it exists, but there is no real information about it. Maybe it's not exactly the topic of your research. So, the second one is appointment of Irina Friz as minister, as the minister of, in the issues of veterans. Is the community of veteran women, did they support her in the meeting as a candidate? Did you consult veterans before? Because it's a very specific ministry, very particular ministry. When you asked, I was reminded. A girl wearing military uniform showed in the trolley bus. Girl and the boy show IDs, and the ticket. And she was asked, what were you doing there? She was not asking the boy, she was asking the girl, what were you doing there at war? So, such idiotic questions women don't want to deal with, so they don't wear uniforms. Women, one more case, women returned from the front, and so the girls were meeting their boys, but the boys did not meet the military girls. They were ashamed to do that, right? So it's a difference in an attitude. So they have a feeling of such shame. We should point out that it's not gender. They should not be ashamed. Those who can should fight, the professionals, regardless of they are men or women. Yes, stigmatization of veterans in the society. Maria gave this very typical example. Women veterans often, very often, come across situations where employment office officers ask them, what were you doing there? You are a woman, what were you doing? How could you leave your children, they asked. Or, coming back, they expect women to perform traditional women's roles. They are not female veterans, they are not people who underwent some hard events, but they are just mothers who need to do what mothers do, right? Here, the coordinators show that we need to finalize it. Okay, ask me privately later. Well, I must say that this is a record that we have. We are here for 2 hours and we still want to go on, right? About your question about veterans, Irina Friz and the veterans. We communicated with Irina Friz when she was Member of Parliament. And I did see her being open. I cannot tell about any specific cooperation with the Ministry of Veterans because the ministry does not exist. So when people ask me about how does this ministry work, I cannot answer. It's not created yet. That's my answer. So in the nearest half a year, we will be able to tell you how the veteran community cooperates with the ministry. I hope it will be fruitful. But it's really hard. Our country, it's really hard to predict, especially when the elections are afoot. And the veterans and volunteers are our best people, so we need maximal effort to help them. Thank you. Thank you.